A few that I've gotten started on with glazing, and some of them are in the middle stage. I like to work kind of flat if I can when I'm glazing. These are 3/4 of the way done. This one,
That to me looks like it could even be finished.
it's finished, except her skin is too orange. So I don't know how to fix that yet. I'm gonna try to problem solve with you guys a little bit. His shadows are too blue. They're too cool. They look dead. You know, anytime you have too much blue in your skin tones, it looks like you're asphyxiated and like you're dead. So I've got to, you know, it's yucky. It gives you a creepy feeling.
Well, I never thought about that. I thought
But
it was
look
so
at it.
good, but
So see what I'm talking about? It's just right in here. So what I would need to do, and I'll just start with him. Let me tell you a little bit about the materials, and y'all already know this. This is my mixture of the three things. Gamsol, which is a mineral spirits, Gamblin's version of mineral spirits, odorless mineral spirits. Galkid, which is a resin, a dryer that will make the oil dry, and walnut oil. You may use walnut oil from the health food store. This is expeller pressed consistency of something. You can use this, but if you use this by itself, it's never gonna dry. You're just gonna have, it's just like putting, you know, cooking oil on your painting. It's just gonna stay oily. It may eventually soak in, but you need a dryer in the oil. So the mineral spirits will help because, you know, if you paint with mineral spirits, just in a few minutes it absorbs and it's gone. It's like rubbing alcohol. It's a solvent and it has an evaporation quality to it.
And what kind of mineral spirit?
Well, the Gamsol is a refined version, not just like you get at the hardware store. That's the Gamsol.
Okay.
So I mix these a third, a third, a third. You do not have to mix them. You can just go to Hobby Lobby and get this walnut
they
alkyd.
haven't had that in about 2 weeks or yeah.
Well, it's already mixed. The benefit
So the whole thing is this mixed, what you just
is
did?
just what I did.
Okay.
But
So,
the
yeah.
benefit of this is that, say I'm working on I've got a show and I'm working on something and I need these layers to dry really quickly, then I'm gonna mix more Galkyd in it. Because the Galkyd is the resin, you know, the Christmas ornaments that are plastic, they're resin, that's what I think about. It's a resin that will harden and make the oil dry. So the more resin I put in it, the faster it will dry for me. Liquidy. The other thing about the mediums that I learned the hard way is once they start to get down like this, now there's a lot of liquid in this, so it's not real thick, it hasn't dried. But once they start to get down like this and they have headspace in them, they will thicken up and they will dry on you, sort of like this. This is the liquid. And liquid is fine to use too. I just got frustrated with liquid because it used to get real tacky and sticky on me when I would use it just in my regular painting. And I didn't like, one of my other bottles of liquid is really, really dark, almost dark brown. And I'm like, if that's what happens to it in my paint, it's really gonna darken my paints and make them really, really
So
brown.
that one is gone, you just throw that one away, or you just
You could probably still, no, you can't liquefy it, I don't think, what I want. But I would, once they get down like this, I really should pour them in a smaller, so they have no air in there. Because the air is what causes them to dry quicker. This one was sort of like Dorothy's. This was the grapes that I set up out here for y'all one time, and I went back in and put some light, and now I need to glaze back over them again, and it's still.
So how many times you glaze?
The ones I've been doing so far, I've glazed probably 3 or 4 times. The video clip I have to let y'all see today, they said Rembrandt would do sometimes 30 layers. Now, I'm looking at them and I'm saying they're all cracked like crazy. So I'm thinking if you put that many layers, it's gonna crack orangey yellow, but I'm gonna figure it out. So this, I've gotta get the blue out of that. So the opposite on the color wheel of blue is
Orange.
Yes. So I'm gonna go over here with some burnt sienna. And I'm gonna see what happens. I don't wanna mix it too strong.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's gonna help. That's gonna help flesh it more, because if it's too blue, suddenly it's not looking like flesh. And this is the part, I showed you guys how to get started with this a few months back when I first started doing it, but I didn't ever go back and show you how to work on it at this stage, because I really didn't have any at this stage yet. I know that looks creepy.
I know, I will be freaking out by
No,
now.
you. And I'll show you can totally wipe all this off. So every bit of it wipes off with no risk whatsoever.
So pretty.
No, but you know how he will look
He's
with
a
the beard.
cutie.
Isn't he a little dog? This is my little grandbaby. How can I? And he's gonna be 10 years old. I can't keep calling him that.
Oh,
Not a
Yes, you
baby
can.
grand.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'll put a little bit more. See how that's bringing that color up even more?
Yep,
Yes,
yep,
yes,
yep.
yes, yes.
And I don't want all that. I really don't want to darken these areas of light on his face. So I'm going to kind of let that sit for a minute. I didn't put anything right here. Let me put just a tiny bit here so that it doesn't look funny. I probably should have done the clear first. See? I'm
You mean just
learning
the
as I go.
plain
Yeah, just plain.
mixture?
Yeah,
Okay.
just because I don't really want to apply any color to the rest of his skin.
Right,
I
'cause
like the
it's-
rest of his
it's
skin.
just called
Even with
the
it
walnut
not even
medium.
being blended yet, it looks
looks better?
Yes.
Yep.
Now, he looks like he's got a little beard. I don't want the big one. I still want this small one. And I'm just going to move it around a little bit. It's warming it up. It's warming that blue up a little. And it's the same thing if you're direct painting and you're mixing your color and you're trying to figure out what the heck that shadow color is. The shadows are really the hardest part for us when you're doing color. They're always the hardest part. It's always a mixture of flesh and the cool color. Green or blue usually. I mean, that's almost all that a shadow is. I don't like how that brush feels. It feels too long. Let me just do this one. It's getting little pieces of hair in it. So these are cheap. So, you know, you got to remember they're each, what, a dime a piece or something? Or this is actually, this one's working better on this
Oh, I
little
see.
sheet.
Oh, he's growing a
You
beard.
see,
I know.
all
We
the
got
hair would drive me crazy.
Oh, is it all over it? Y'all can see it and I can't see it.
It is. It's
It is
just.
It's a new
Yeah.
brush. I just got it out of there. So do this to it and get as much of that off as you can, and then just don't worry about it. I don't worry about it.
And always
Yeah, you got it.
smooth
do
it
it,
out a little
yeah.
bit.
Am I getting them? Well?
Yep.
Yes, you are.
There's one still at the corner of his, on his lip, kinda.
And I didn't put anything on his lips, but look, I might could put just a tiny bit. He'll be so mad at me,
Yes, it will be.
but I don't care. I'm doing it. Look how pretty that is.
Oh, yeah. that
It
helps.
is.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe even just a tiny bit more over here. I mean, I can take it out. I don't have to keep it in there. I put that on his little ears.
His ears look good. Really, really
Yeah.
good.
Maybe all right, so you see that's starting to help. It's still too blue. I took every bit of it off down there. You can use your goat ones too, and they shed like this too, not quite as bad. But you see how that's starting to brighten him up in a few places.
See
One of
the
the-
drip, it will that dry? Because you see so much.
Oh yeah, so you have to make sure you get it all over the
Yeah.
whole thing, because you'll see the different layers of glaze.
Yeah, okay.
Like even over his eyes. I should have done that to start with. Just the whole thing gets a little thin, very
Yes.
thin layer. That's why these are so nice.
Boy, he sure did come to life then.
I know. Isn't that fun? And look over the blue.
Beautiful.
And when I went to the current exhibit at the Frisch right now, the World War II, please get over there if you get a chance. There's a couple of just knock your socks off paintings.
That sounds good.
You look at them and they all have irregularities in the paint. And in some places are shiny, some places are dull. That's the quality of oil paint. It's just not all the same. But you see it's adding a little bit of color, so I don't want to glaze too much on this white or I'll start to turn it
Dark. yeah.
darker. You know, that's what the other thing you have to think about with these glazes. Now, have I missed some spots?
The hair. Yes, where, right here where you lifted something.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, there's a big dog.
you need to
And
Smooth
his
it out.
neck up under his chin there, all
Right,
across
those two
there.
places here.
Yes,
Got wiped off.
all of that, yes.
Yeah, you
Now,
need
I'll
to-
wipe all this off. I mean, I can totally wipe this off because I'll do it probably for all my classes this week.
Oh,
But you can totally go back
hard to say.
to where you were. So there's no risk. I know
What a
it.
shame.
No, there's no risk to this. That's the beautiful part of it.
Oh, but it's still staying a little bit.
It's there a little bit. So I want to lift some off his teeth because there's a little pink tinge to his teeth.
Okay.
Yeah, his teeth need something else. They're a little bit dark. But, so anyway, I went back to the blue, and so you see how easy it is. If you don't like what you've done, each layer can be wiped off. That's what's so wonderful about it. It's just you're not gonna mess it up. But I do need to remind you that the painting underneath here needs to be a standalone painting. Now, like in the case of Reba, she's doing the peppers, and I haven't done anything like that. I'm just starting with these. She's almost painted over areas of them because they were so dark. And that's what he says in the video too. He says you have to do things lighter because each layer you add is darkening, darkening, darkening. So I'm just figuring those things out. And you can see these are all I've done in the glazing. So Sydney and Mandy, but I'm just figuring some of that stuff out. So you do have to go a little bit lighter, and you have to make sure all this is right. If you have any big areas of skin that are still choppy, when you start to glaze over it, it's gonna be choppy under there, and you're gonna have to direct paint over the top of that to get it to smooth out. So make sure that, like all this was already pretty smooth. It's just still, again, way too blue.
And the board, do you just sand it to get those crisscross marks
Yes,
off?
I had a few, I think in Sydney's face maybe. You can see a few places that the lines across her forehead. And you can see all my lines all the way across the whole thing. Let me just real quickly show you with hers. I don't know, again, I haven't figured out what I'm gonna do to this to get the orange out. What would y'all
I like
say?
Well, you need to put a little coal then. Isn't it? Not necessarily.
I don't know. I don't want to put
Would it
any
make
more
it too
shadow. I've got the monitor over there, and I don't.
Or
I think
more yellow?
I need to add some light in there. Maybe I need to maybe kind of direct paint back into it
Oh, that's something. Yeah.
so that it's not so orange.
Yeah.
But see, I can play with this. I don't have to worry too much about it because I'm going to wipe it if I don't like it. That's too much. So it gets foggy and milky looking. It doesn't look good when you put too much white in it. But yellow, raw sienna is a transparent yellow. It's the organic transparent yellow that you want. The other Indian yellow is real bright.
That looks pretty.
Yeah.
That's
That
not
helps.
bad.
Yeah,
that
that helps.
really helped a lot.
Because that orange was just, and I worked on this late at night with my big light in there. So the big light was just making everything washed out. Yeah, that already did help a little bit, didn't it? Let me see this way. Yeah, just tiny bit. It didn't take a lot.
That's better. Beautiful.
I mean, I'm just putting it all over everywhere. I don't know. That helps. This is still a little too dark and cold. So I could go get the opposite
inner
of that
canvas
blue.
here?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
just right here. And if you were direct painting and you were doing this shadow, you just mix a little bit more burnt sienna or a little bit more of an orangey color in with that blue shadow, so it's not so cold. You see how cold that blue can be, and it's too blue. We have blue, we have green, but when they get that hard, it still may be too harsh. What if I put just a tiny bit of light in it? Well, you guys have shadow. Look at Jeanette's. You have shadow in here that's really dark. So what happens when you're painting sometimes is you make a beeline for that, and that's all you're looking at. And you're going, oh, it's too dark, it's too dark, it's too dark. But then when you get back and you just glance at the whole thing, your eye reads it properly. And so it's real easy to get caught up in
When
that.
you're putting makeup in the morning, you're trying to hide that dark.
Yeah, yes, you are trying to hide a lot of things in the
You're
morning.
like, okay.
I don't have any Viridian. I was going to show you real quickly how. Do you see Viridian? Is that?
No, but I've
No.
got
Do you have a little just?
I've got it
And
already
listen,
out.
that's the reason that the old masters, they had these huge paintings, and they used glazing because it conserved paint. They had, one of them talked about the lapis lazuli color that was the same as gold. It was like twice as much as gold. Thank you, dear.
Well, you'll need more than that.
Maybe not. But I could, okay, so you can go
Oh, I
back
already
in
like
here
that dark.
and put some more on this, and you can keep building these layers up. And it's really like kindergarten. You don't have to be real careful at this point.
I love these colors in here
I
too.
feel like I have to
They're
be
so
careful
pretty.
at every point.
You do?
Yes.
Now, all that's yucky and.
Right there's the
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, these helpers.
We're just
Well, it just,
gonna be a
Like we know
masterpiece.
what we're doing.
And then I would go over this a little. Just a little. To give it a little bit more.
Reflection or something.
I wonder if that little girl on the page there has ever thanked God that she's so beautiful.
I know she is. Just stunning.
Credit, she says.
You are so gorgeous.
Well,
I'm sure she's like, oh my goodness, look at my nose.
Let me show you just one little quick thing too. I know y'all would like to paint today.
Oh, God. Doesn't matter.
I'm
Oh,
not
sticky.
sure that I don't
It
just
must
need
be
to see.
dried out.
Same here.
Yes, it is.
I wonder if I
pretty
just
blue.
put, that's not
Yeah.
white
Oh,
enough.
I like that.
If I just put a, whoop, that's too much. Well, there's some ultramarine. Let me just try a little bit of that. No, that dulled it. Let me get another stab.
Just stick it
Phyllis.
hard.
I don't want to
Oh,
contaminate your pile there.
please, contaminate.
Cerulean has white in it, so it
So pretty blue.
is pretty. A little bit of medium. And so you can kind of paint
Play
in and
with
out.
it.
Yeah, just paint in and out with stuff.
I like that.
And see, that puts a little light
Yes.
back in there so it's not so dense. So it'll go back and forth, up and down. And again, you just take your cotton rag, save your t-shirts, your socks. Socks get a little bit more lint in them, but the cotton rags are great. And then you just wipe it all off if you don't like it. You have totally
I
no.
know it's yours. That's important to have a little rag in there.
Yes, not a paper towel either.
know.
And he talks about on the video using hog hair brushes. I, for the life of me, cannot imagine using hog hair brushes to do this. These little cheap sables are perfect. They're just smooth and they hold the glaze and they put a nice smooth layer on for you. And the hog hair is like a broom. To me, it scrapes it off. It wouldn't be good.
It's rough.
I could still put a little bit. Watch this. This will be a fun thing too. Isn't this fun? You just keep y'all here all day.
I love watching.
You do?
I do.
I know
Put my
because we
glasses on.
learn.
So I'm gonna lose her highlight. So I'll probably have to go back in there and put that back on. But I can glaze one more layer over her eyes, maybe.
I love it.
They're probably not that
Pretty.
that cerulean, are they? And I need
Let's get her down and look at her eyes.
Let's see if they're good.
red.
But today they're a little more gray.
I told y'all, I think last week, but Mark and I were watching that Game of Thrones, and a bunch of the actors on there have really blue eyes, and he's looking at it from the video standpoint because he's a videographer guy and a musician, and he's like, you have no idea how long they took getting that Khaleesi girl set up where the light was making her eyes just
Pop.
pop.
Oh, yeah, I would think.
This is a lousy brush right here, but so have good brushes. So remember, this is your moon. So I always got to go back in there and put that moon back in so that there's a real glowy thing on the moon. So anyway, but that makes me feel better. That quick lightning helped her and got rid of the orangey thing. So it's true what I say. You
And
can
you-
fix anything. It's true. What?
Which
Dorothy?
one did you use on there? This one or was?
I used this with the yellow because there's already plenty of orange. I didn't need any more orange.
Right.
So remember, all skin tone is just yellow or red, or a combination of yellow and red. So if it's
okay.
too yellow,
More
you
red.
want to go back to, you want to go back to more
Orange,
orange, red or orange. If it's too red, you want to add a little bit more yellow. So it's always tweaking back and forth. It's so simple. We make it a lot more complicated than it is, but it's really quite simple just to think about. And I had blue in there.
I see
Not
blue.
good. But see how easy it is. to fix.
Yes.
So again,
See, that helps us not to be so afraid when we do mess up something to be able to.
I'm gonna fix it for another class, so I'm gonna take this
yeah.
off. But again, so
Dang it.
it's like the
Now that he worked with us, it's like, oh, you really look like a professional next class.
well, I'll know what I'm doing next time. I'm not just winging it. But so much of this is not knowing what you're doing. And look how it turned everything yucky. So I'll have to. You
Now,
don't
how
want to.
long will that take to dry generally?
Well, it depends on the humidity.
Uh-huh.
It could take you know, a week. The reds could take 2 weeks. Sometimes
Yeah.
reds can take 2 weeks. So
Green
that's the part.
takes a while too.
But I've gotten to where I like to get it all wet, and then I like to work into it. I like to pop the lights back in. I like to work in it while it's all wet. So I can almost, like I did all of this. I did one quick glaze, and I videoed it, so I will post that eventually. I did one quick glaze of, I drew her and did the grisaille one night. And then the next night I did the whole, I let it dry really good a couple days. The next night I put all the quick tint over it. Just looked like a colorized photo. It wasn't very dramatic. It was kind of blah. In fact, I put it in the newsletter. Y'all saw the newsletter if you saw the one I just sent yesterday. It's just barely colored. It's not very exciting. Let that dry, and then the next night I did all that. The next night. So I only have two layers of glaze and one night to draw and grisaille. I did the drawing and the grisaille the same night. You know, I get going about 10 o'clock. And then I start having my hissy fit when I look at the clock and it's 2 and I'm like, I don't want to stop. I got white right here. I'm gonna probably pop up her head a little bit more on this. The rest of it's undone now, so it won't matter, but you can see that there's gonna be some areas that I can probably make that hat pop more. I have to go look at the picture again to see where it pops.
Boy,
but
it did, just that.
just a little bit, just a little bit. Yeah. So again, I know that some of you guys have struggled with the glazing and you're not really that excited about it, Reba.
Well, then we want to say any names of Reba.
But Reba, I know, I just RA are the initials. Not just you, but I know some of you have tried it too, and it's not real gratifying in the beginning stage. And you may want to wait and let me figure out some more of the problems. But listen, every painting has its own set of issues. So I can't figure them all out. It'll probably take me a lifetime to figure them all out. But you see, just again, by taking these in middle stage and kind of seeing, I thought this was one we did in a little workshop here, Christmas workshop. I thought this might be fun. Next week I'll do some more. I'll figure out a few more things and bring these up a little more. I thought this might be fun to put a layer of glaze over it.
I bet
It's a
would.
canvas. You know, it's one of these cheapos. It's a canvas, but I've got enough paint on it now that it's not so groovy. groovy. That it will, the glaze in a canvas kind of settles down in the little pits. And that's why when you see the old masters, they almost always worked on wood panels because it was a smooth surface. So that the glaze would lay evenly on it instead of going down into the little grooves of the canvas. And a canvas will flex, and it could crack because you're putting something that's going to dry brittle, and then on a flexible surface. And then as you flex it for any reason, if you move it or take it in out of a frame, that's when you could get the cracking. So it's really better to do the wood panels. I've got